Call the Plan Commission, I'm sorry, I just did public safety. The Plan Commission meeting to order, please. First up on the agenda is to consider the meeting minutes of 5:24. We have a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next on the agenda is concept development plans, 6,344 square feet, office building at 2321 Jack Brolt Drive, which is Lot 5, St. Croix Business Park East. Procentive, the Hampton Group, LLC. Denny?
For your orientation, Lot 5 is St. Croix Business Parks on the new St. Croix Business Park East, which is east of State Trunk Highway 35 and just north of Tower Road. This would be old Highway 35. You'd enter in and goes west and south on Jack Brolt Drive. This is Tower Road, and again, State Trunk Highway 35 is here. Again, the entrance will be off of Jack Brolt Drive. The initial phase will be about 6,344 square feet. They also plan 2 additional phases that they're incorporating into their planning. One of the issues from the fire department was if the building was not going to be sprinklered, that they're desiring to have a fire lane constructed. And visiting with the contractor on the project, Dave Lundy, he indicated that they will provide that fire access lane when we see the final development plans. There's some issues with storm drainage as far as drainage along the easement area into the stormwater pond to the north. Currently their calculations calculate just for this phase, and then storm drainage will go into that drainage swale. As they add this second and third additions, they'll recalculate, and then some of that grading may need to be modified to account for that. Dave Lundy is here, and Jeff Burton are here representing the project. If either one of you like to make any comments, please come up to the lectern and visit if there's any particular questions. City staff recommends approval of the concept development plans for the Procentive Hampton Group concept development plans, and with conditions that the recommendations of the fire inspector, fire department, and city engineer are incorporated into the final development plan.
Okay. Dave, or?
Pretty much I'll just take any questions that you have. I don't really have any comments other than we've received the requests from the fire department and from the city engineer, and we're currently working on complying with the requests that they've made to the plan. All were pretty minor, and most of it is just relatively simple changes, so we didn't see anything in there that we considered to be a big issue, and our engineer is currently working on those to have them complete as soon as possible and ready back down for you with the final plan. So.
Great. Is there any questions? Anyone? Anyone want to hear from Jack, or would you like to speak at all, or are you content? Everyone's content? Anyone else out there? Oh. Okay. Well, do we have a motion then?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the plan with the recommendations of city staff as outlined by Denny.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, motion passes. Thank you. Number 4 is request to amend City of Hudson Chapter 255 zoning code to permit indoor gun ranges in B2 General Business District and I1 Light Industrial District and I2 General Industrial District. John Monson, Spills Gun Shop and Range. Denny?
Well, this request, I visited Mr. John Martin, I believe, from the Monson, or from the Bill's Gun Range about 2 months ago, asking about the possibility of having an indoor gun range in the city of Hudson. Currently, our zoning code does not permit gun ranges within the city. Now, I think it's written from the perspective that gun ranges have historically been outdoor gun ranges, and that is not necessarily conducive with urban development. This is an indoor gun range. I've spent a lot of time doing as much research on indoor gun ranges, visited with Marty Jensen, our police chief, a little bit. In regards to this issue, I think Marty and I both feel very comfortable that an indoor shooting range or gun range can be developed within the city of Hudson. I am recommending that the zoning code be amended to permit indoor gun ranges through a certificate of compliance, which means that the plans would have to be submitted to the Plan Commission and Council for approval prior to a permit being issued for implementation or construction of an indoor gun or shooting range. Now there's two other options to that. One would be just a permitted use, but I really believe that we should have some review consideration. That would be a conditional use permit, which would require a public hearing before the Plan Commission and then approval of the recommendations of the Plan Commission before a indoor gun range or shooting range would be permitted. Again, I've tried to look at the pros and cons of indoor gun ranges. Certainly, the safety factor is that the facilities need to incorporate safe standards. And also some of those safe standards aren't only just ammunition going through walls or so forth, but also air quality. You have lead, ventilation, lighting are all very important issues of indoor gun ranges. So from my perspective, I think it is something that the city should entertain consideration of. I don't see a reason for just flat out saying no to it. I think they can be cited within either the B2 General Business District, the I1 Light and Industrial District, or the I2 General Industrial District. But again, my recommendation would be to consider modifying or amending the zoning code to permit them in those three districts with a certificate of compliance. And Marty Jensen, our police chief's here tonight. It's my understanding he did attend, along with one of the officers, the Circle Pines facility that Mr. Monson owns. And also, I think John Monson's here tonight. He can also answer any specific questions as far as operation, safety, considerations of an indoor gun range.
Thank you, Denny.
Just a quick question, Denny. In your note, you say a minimum standard should be set for insurance coverage. What do you see as typical for that?
Well, I think
this
that's
type of
something our city attorney would probably want to
Okay.
review. But there is provisions in state statute that limits or provides immunity for recreational use. Also, there's some provisions in state statute in regards to noise considerations, limitations on shooting ranges. I think those two issues the city attorney also should look at. I guess those are issues, as I did my research, just came up very recently. I don't have a concern about those issues, but certainly I think if we're going to provide a recommendation to the Common Council, so the amendment to the zoning ordinance to go to public hearing, I think we'd want some of those issues reviewed by the city attorney prior to actually going to public hearing on the issue.
And these design criterias that you gave in our packet here,
Well,
this boilerplate?
Well, yeah, they're kind of boilerplate. I provided that. That was from 2012 standards for the Department of Energy. Really, the purpose of giving you that information was to really show some of the what issues are as far as the construction and operation of indoor shooting ranges, such as lighting, ventilation, the safety baffles of your walls or ceiling considerations, so that any bullets that are shot are redirected into the target areas if there's a minor misdirection of a shot. Those types of things. I mean, I wanted to give you some information that you can see. This isn't indoor shooting ranges. I think there's John, I don't know, maybe correct me, I understand there's anywhere from 16 to 20,000 shooting ranges in the United States, or?
About that.
There's quite a few.
Our outdoors are not as substantial
Oh, yeah.
indoors, but the nation is changing their direction to going indoors because you can't control the environment. You can control where the round goes in the lead. You can control the noise. You can control the air and the air quality. So a lot of the change is going directed back towards indoor facilities. Encroachment on these outdoor facilities has been a huge issue in the nation the last 5 or 10 years.
You know,
John,
really
you wanna
need
come
to
up?
come up to the lectern, John, if you're gonna talk, but maybe if you wanna present some of your information and make some comments.
Actually, if you don't mind hanging
Yeah, no,
out there, I can kind of explain it. Basically, we've got an outline of what we would use for a building layout. Basically, basically where I should start is the fact of, some of the concerns will always be, shooting a gun.
Hold the microphone up
Oh,
too,
yep.
so.
Shooting in an indoor facility, that's gonna
Is it
say.
gonna go up?
But the idea of our facilities is it's basically a big cement box. And inside of that cement box, the bullets are designed to go forward, okay? So the redirection of, the demolition of that facility that exists at the theater now will be a matter of simply taking the walls and the ceilings down and leveling the floor, and then implementing a cement box, if you will. So the exterior walls will be core filled with concrete. The interior walls will then be built with core filled, and then there'll be spancrete put across the ceiling. So in a sense, you literally will be walking into a cement box. Everything at the shooting point going forward will be redirected with baffles or designation of the shooting lane, so that every bullet that leaves the shooting point will actually end up in the pile. So there are baffle and redirect plates in the ceilings. There will be baffles and redirect plates by the doors where there's access. There's a double door air quality control, so when you go in, it's a negative air pressure system. So there'll be a 5-mile-an-hour backwind breeze coming to the back of your head from behind the point. It will blow through you into the down point of the range, the back side of the range. It will suck that air back up. It will then go back all the way through a cycle through an air handling system, which will consist of a bag, and then a HEPA filter system. So any air that's burped out the side for the negative pressure is ventilated, and then the air is recycled. So heating and air conditioning will all go through that entire process. So basically, in a 25-yard range, you're going to have 150 feet of duct system, and the air is going to continually recycle. We'll take in fresh air as we need, and we'll burp out anything that we don't need to keep that negative air quality. By having that double door system and that negative air quality, the air doesn't actually leave the range, nor does the sound then. So by having a double door, you enter the entryway in one door, let that door close, it seals that area, then you open the secondary door, therefore keeping all the contaminant, the lead, the air, the noise, all of that on the range. Recently in my Robbinsdale facility, we had OSHA visit, and OSHA's new objective in the next 2 or 3 years nationally is to do noise monitoring. So not only are they looking at the lead, they're looking at the noise. So I went through an extensive noise testing process with OSHA in my Robbinsdale facility, where they actually put noise monitoring equipment on the range, on staff outside of my range, and on staff that go in the range, as well as customers. And the way we've got our ranges developed, our noise, and I forget the exact numbers because it's extremely confusing, but we were by far under the allotted noise allotment in order to not cause hearing damage. So we have an internal policy where our staff has to double plug inside foam mugs and exterior mugs for customers that you can choose to do one or the other. But even with just a single a hearing system, just a muff, the decibel rating of the noise is not to a point where it actually would harm your hearing. Okay, so one of the big issues that we have is hearing, is noise. If you were to be outside of that facility, you would hear a muffled shooting noise, but if you were to stand 50 yards back from the facility, most likely you wouldn't even know that there was shooting taking place inside the facility. Again, the concept of a completely enclosed cement box takes all that noise and holds it inside. There'll be some also at the point, there'll also be some acoustic material built into the lane dividers that take that noise at the immediate point of your shooting point, and then the air pushes the noise away. So those issues are addressed. The air quality issue is addressed with a state-of-the-art HVAC system. I have 2 facilities now. We change our filters every week. We are unlike a lot of the other facilities in the nation. There are thousands and thousands of them. The National Shooting Sport Federation is the charter organization that runs this industry in the nation. It runs the distributors, it runs the gun manufacturers, and people like me, the retailers. And that organization has 25 ranges they consider to be 5-star, which 5-star is the highest rating you can get.
There are 25 in the nation. 2 of my facilities are those 25. So I'm the 23rd and 24th facility right now. I also was named by that organization this year at their annual event as the Range of the Year in 2012 in my Robbinsdale location. I sit on the committee for the National Shooting Federation for the Range Development Committee, and next week I will be at a conference that committee puts on once a year and speak to a group of 133 potential range developers for indoor shooting ranges and advise them on how to build them, how to operate them, how to run them, what programs work, how to manage your facilities, how to build them out, or how to modify them to get them into code. So I sit on that committee as well. So this isn't a fly-by-night operation. This isn't a, we've got one, we've tried it. We work with Minnesota Gopher to get rid of our hazmat. We recycle everything in downtown at Kirschbaum's. We've got records of all of our containment. For being a gun range, we're pretty green. All of our filters are brought to an incinerator and they're actually burned, so nothing is going into a landfill. My backstop is made out of Grantex rubber, which is rubber at its last stage of recycling. Over time, that rubber will degrade and it will get to be pulverized. And our answer is we simply add more rubber on top of that. So they're not actually taking rubber and putting it into a landfill. Although in the 20 years of bills, I think we have put about 3 Gaylords into a landfill with that. But that's really minor, really minor. We don't use the products that some ranges use, that you line the walls or line the ceilings to make them bulletproof, because those products aren't recyclable. And once they are contaminated with lead, the only answer is to put them in a landfill. So we've come up with different answers with redirect plates, with pillars, and things of those natures that we can recycle and or that can handle the bullets to get them into the trap. Every year, I recycle about 160,000 pounds of lead between my 2 facilities, which equates to probably about 4 or 5 million rounds. So our facilities in both of those locations are at capacity. The Robbinsdale location has 22 lanes. My Circle Pines location has 16 lanes. It's not uncommon for me to be at capacity 6-7 days a week for about 6 months out of the year, and about Mother's Day through when the kids go back to school, that's when we slow down. So we're seasonal in the areas we're at now. One of our hopes to come into Hudson is maybe we can pick up some of that recreational business around the river.
Any other questions?
I have some questions. Oh, go ahead.
Absolutely.
How many lanes were you planning for
There will
this?
be 26, 23 would be open to the public, and 3 would be law enforcement only. And they will all be, well, the 23 to open to the public would be at 25 yards, and the law enforcement range would be 50 feet. And there would be 3 lanes designated for law enforcement only that would be accessible after hours. The idea of that is to have our community people, the Hudson Police, for example, would be able to take their officers instead of bringing the night shift people in during the day. We would grant them access to that facility for their use.
Very clear.
What attracted you to Hudson?
I sat down like any business and looked at a map and tried to target on our audience and find a community that would work for us. The traffic that comes down 94 every day, the availability off of Carmichael with the traffic that they've got with the retail area that's there is very attractive. When we first started targeting, we looked at the Woodbury area and have decided that we would rather be on the Wisconsin side of the border. I like being on this side of the river.
What is the average age of your customers?
You would be surprised there isn't one. There isn't an average gender. We probably have increased our business to about 30% to include women now, versus back in the old days it was a good old boys, smoky good old boys club. We have date nights, we have ladies nights, we have ladies programs only. You will see youth in there. We do the Minnesota DNR classes. We teach 300 kids a year in classes, 3 classes of 100 kids at a time. You'll see kids that are 10 years old in there. In our classes for handguns, we limit the age at 16. On the range, we allow kids to go in with parents, and it's more of a maturity issue of the parent and the child combined. We try to limit that at 12.
And what are your hours of operation?
9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. Yes, sir.
You'll be selling firearms as well?
That is correct.
And you did touch on classes, you'll be offering classes,
Yes.
safety and
The classes we
conceal
do
and
now
carry and-
start from an introductory class through the National Shooting Sport Federation, which is, I can't think of the name of it, but it's basically an introductory class to a basic handgun familiarization class, all the way up to a tactical shooting style class. So we've got personal protection, home defense, conceal and carry, basic classes, intermediate classes, tactical classes, carbine, rifle, shotgun, just about any kind of firearm class you can relate to. And then we also do some non-lethal classes, which would be refuse to be a victim type of course for, the NRA uses it for females, but we use it for anybody.
Okay.
go back to your question about the age, I didn't really answer that very well. We have people that are in there every day. I've got cronies that are in there 60, 70, 80 years old. I got people that bring their kids in, and the wife and the kids sit and watch dad shoot through the window kind of deal. So they're just, we see every walk of life and every age. There really is no cross that we don't bear. Yes, sir.
John, I went over to your Sickle Pines location,
Okay.
because I hadn't seen
Yeah.
one, and I wanted to see what it looked like. I was impressed with the professionalism, safety. You had a classroom there. Do you plan on having?
We'll actually have 2 classrooms here, yes.
Okay. Could you talk about, it seemed like, I don't, and you probably haven't even seen these design guidelines. So-
I haven't. I've seen design guidelines through the National Shooting Sport Federation.
Okay.
So I'm aware of just about how every other range facilities are made. There are manufacturers that make oodles of different backstops and traps and whatnot. What we have done is we've taken those designs of the best that work and incorporated them into ours. So we really have a customized version of 3 or 4 different manufacturers together.
Okay, could you explain that? Because it seems like the explanation that I got of like the backstop, it was a lot more intensive at your location than what these guidelines are. So could you explain what
Yeah,
you do?
we use the base system of a Caswell, which is now Meggitt Systems, and basically what that is it's a big, huge stair. So figure if you put a flat wall, you put a Paul Bunyan-sized stair in there, and it's going to be 2 steps. The idea is to get the middle off the top step to be the sweet spot where the majority of your rounds are going to travel. Inside of that step, you're going to angle at about a 45-degree angle. You're going to have rubber, Grand-Tex rubber that has come from airplane tires or for like taconite trucks, the big heavy-duty trucks. They don't have wire, they don't have rope in them. It's just pure rubber chunks. Those rubber chunks are not smooth, they're jagged and edged. Caswell system says they go 36 to 38 inches deep. We go 46 to 48 inches deep. According to the spec, they can handle up to 3,500 feet per second for muzzle velocity. Our backstop, we believe, can handle up to 44, which can cover just about any gun somebody can bring in, including armor-piercing rounds. So we have overemphasized the backstop systems that they have to account for shooting with the general population of people doing dumb things and bringing in tracer rounds or armor-piercing, or simply bringing in a gun like a 22-250 that's going to shoot 4,200 feet per second. So we've overstocked our backstop in order to handle and account for those misnomers. Even though we don't allow it, we check the ammo. Things like that do slip through.
And then talk about the ammo too, of what ammo do you allow?
Well, we allow basically any ammo, but we don't allow steel trace, steel core, or armor piercing, or the tracer rounds. Other than that, you can have steel casing, you have brass casing. We don't allow aluminum casing from a recycling standpoint. It becomes a very large task at hand to clean that. The customer can bring their own ammo in. We sell the ammo. A customer can bring their own targets. We sell the targets. We keep it at a professional level. It's not a junkyard gallery, so you can't bring a picture of your ex. You can't bring a paper plate with a smiley face on it, those type of things. But if you were to go to a general box store and buy a target, and it's a legitimate target, that would work for us. We keep it at a professional level. Everybody that comes in, we have a range safety video that we play on a presentation at the range. We have range rules listed at the range, and every person that comes in, whether they're a regular shooter or a first-time shooter, they all get the same presentation. They're told about the air handling system, the quality door locks. They're talked about how and where they can handle their firearms, how and where they can load their firearms, and how the range operates. So it's a standard routine that every range officer goes through for every customer. It gets redundant for some of our regular customers, but they're used to it. So the backstop system, if you looked in general at what the industry was charging, it would be between $25,000 and $40,000 per lane to install a shooting point. That includes the ventilation, the air handling, the lights, the stall equipment, and all of those things for a range. Because we have been doing this for a while, and because we have direct contacts, we don't have to go through third parties to get those equipment. We can go and get this stuff direct. We've rebuilt our own lanes into our own shell, which we find are more effective because we've got them higher, we've got them wider, and we can do it for a fraction of the cost.
I think people's fear would be a bullet going through the building, but essentially you're building a building inside the building.
I'm building a building inside of a building, and
That's
everything will be core blocked, concrete core blocked. The Robbinsdale facility was built in 1989, and a bullet hasn't left that facility. The North Store was built in 1998 or 1999, and a bullet hasn't left that facility as well. There simply is no way for a bullet to get out. When you're standing at the point shooting forward, everything is concrete, forward, front, back, top, bottom, and side. And behind you, we will put a concrete barrier behind you with bulletproof glass so that you can see in and manage those. We have camera systems that will be inside of the range and a monitor of banks that will be available for the customers and our employees to view so we can see what's going on at all times. The bullets just can't get out.
Frank, did you have a question?
What's the range of weapons that are allowed?
Because we can handle up to 3,500 feet per second, you can go in there and shoot a pellet gun or an airsoft gun, or you can shoot a 50 caliber BMG. So there really isn't a restriction as long as you can get ammunition that's acceptable to the backstop, which means non-armor piercing, tracer, and which is basically available for everything. Shotguns, rifles. We do literally thousands of deer hunter rifle sight-ins at 25 yards every year at my Robbinsdale facility, and thousands of them at my North facility, which is 50 yards, because it's all about ballistics. So we have ballistic programs that can tell you if you're going to shoot a 30-06 or 30 caliber rifle at 25 yards, where do you want that bullet to strike in the paper? 25 to be zeroed at 50, 100, 200, 250, 300, whatever you'd like it to be. So it's all about ballistics and knowing the bullet. But we can handle just about anything.
Going back to the facility.
Yep.
Is the existing facility footprint going to remain, the outer footprint going to remain?
Yes, everything will happen inside the existing footprint. So basically the inside of the building will be gutted, and we will build the box inside of a box.
And the exterior of the building, you're planning on leaving that as is, or?
As is, but it will be core filled. So the exterior walls that will touch the range will be core filled. If the existing block is not already load-bearing core filled, they will be core filled, and that's in our plan. So all the concrete will be core filled. So it's not just shooting through a concrete block. You have to shoot through a 8 to 12 inch block of concrete. So the bullet just can't penetrate it. And the angle that we set everything, you're not having a direct, you don't have the ability to put a direct shot into the concrete. Everything is angled. So because of those angles and no flat surfaces, the ability to penetrate that, even with multiple rounds of full auto, multiple round with AP rounds, would not penetrate.
Do you use special concrete for that, for your walls, interior
The
walls?
ceiling will be hardened. The spancrates will be hardened on the ceiling because they'll take more hits than anything else. But no, we do not. It's simply concrete blocks that are core filled.
Very clear.
What type of injuries and accidents have you experienced in your two other facilities, and how
I have-
many?
Yep.
I mean, what would be the accident or injury that you've had, and how many of you had in those?
I can answer that. I have had one accident in my North store where a outside training organization taught by a deputy sheriff brought a class into the range, and he broke the rules. He took one student into the range at a time and left the other students standing outside the range area with their firearms holstered and loaded. So he had loaded firearms in the classroom and then had those students outside of the range loaded, and one customer was smart enough to pull his gun out of his holster, and when he put the holster back in the gun, he shot himself in the leg. That's the only accident I've had at that store. The injury was superficial, went to the hospital, released an hour later. At my Robbinsdale facility, I've had two accidents. One was self-inflicted on purpose, and it was unfortunate. The gentleman tried to commit suicide and failed at that attempt. No other people were injured in that event. And the other accident was an elderly gentleman who was using a firearm that was just too big for him and put his hand around the cylinder of a revolver, and the gas exchange going from the cylinder to the barrel tore into his finger and his hand, and he required stitches. Other than that, we see a scope kick once in a while. You get a little ding in the eye, and get a little blood, and we bust up some knuckles with slides and stuff like that. But beyond Band-Aids here and there, we've only really had 3 major accidents in my 10 years.
Gordon?
I'm Gordon Kennard, 36 Eagles Nest Circle. When I was a teenager, I did target shooting inside. It's a long time ago in Watertown, Wisconsin. And what you heard from Mr. Munson sounds like the safety issues are not a concern. I just have one more question on the sound issues. For businesses that are proximate to you, will they hear anything?
No, they won't. The idea of the facility is because it's a box inside of a box, and the way it's designed, the businesses, for example, there's a Hall and a gas station kitty corner across from that mall. They won't know that there's gunshots. They won't even know there's guns being fired.
And as you're standing outside your building, I think you said you would hear some muffled
You
sound?
hear a muffled shooting noise.
But that's not going to
You
impinge
you could stand right next to the facility while they're shooting inside, and you'd hear muffled gunshots, but if you didn't know it was gunshots, you'd wonder what that muffled noise was. But because of the repetitiveness this that you'll hear, you'll realize it's firearms. But by no means would you have to have hearing protection in or any of those things at all. If you were standing 50 yards back from the facility, you wouldn't know we were shooting inside.
But the businesses won't be adversely impacted, is my
Absolutely
point.
not. Absolutely not.
Thank you, Gordon. Frank?
You'll also have a gun shop there, correct?
Yes, sir.
What type of weapons would you sell? I mean, the same as a normal store?
Same as any normal store like I'm doing now. We don't do Class 3 firearm transfers or SBRs, what they're called. We will have a manufacturing license, but we'll use that for recreational, internal use only. The ability to sell and transfer machine guns, fully automatic firearms, is there with a manufacturer's license. It's not a business I partake in. It's completely legit. You know, there's a lot of paperwork that goes with it. There's a lot of money to be made in that business. We just don't, we as me, I don't like the reputation that brings, and I don't need that stigma on our name. So we will sell hunting firearms, rifles and shotguns. We'll sell home defense handguns, rifles, shotguns, and we will sell what would be considered to be assault style, AKs, ARs, and those type of military knockoff in a semi-automatic mode.
Kevin, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, where will the entrance to?
The entrance will be in the existing entrance will stay in place.
That's on the, towards the freeway?
Nope, that's in the theater.
That's in
The
back.
theater entrance will be the main entrance.
That will be the main entrance
Yes.
to the parking.
So
down
we
there.
won't actually expand into the mall that has the freeway frontage.
Okay, gotcha.
So that 6,400 square feet will be leased out to a different tenant.
Oh, you won't be taking that?
No.
spot, okay, gotcha.
So we'll take approximately 15,000 square feet, but not into, we won't take the two theaters that are in the existing mall, strip mall area.
Gotcha.
Paul?
I'd like to hear from Chief Jensen the pros and cons of a facility like this, if he would
Marty?
be so kind.
Well, I'm kind of excited to see this come in. Obviously, having a shooting range in the city of Hudson will work out great for the police department. Obviously, the closest one that we have access to is in Eau Claire. I did go over to John's facility in Circle Pines. He gave me a tour of the facility. We were standing outside when they were shooting, and you could barely hear the sound at all. So I don't think noise is going to be an issue. You can definitely tell that he takes safety very seriously. It's a very professionally run facility. I did contact Circle Pines PD, Blaine Police Department, because they cover Circle Pines as well, and the Robbinsdale Police Department, asking about types of activities that happen at this facility, at these two facilities, and most of them have been false alarms. They've had a couple of fraud complaints that have happened, but that's because somebody wrote a bad check or something along those lines, and they had one domestic that happened in the parking lot, and that's been it. There has been no problems at these facilities. One of my main concerns was, because he does sell a lot of firearms there, about access to those firearms, somebody breaking in. If he does the building like he does in Circle Pines, it's going to be almost like Fort Knox trying to come through the front door. He's got a security system that is second to none that I've seen before. We're going to have access to his video system if we need to, if we have a crime that we have to follow through with. He's going to have camera systems in the parking lot, so he takes this very seriously. And like I said, when I was done with my 2.5-hour tour, I was very impressed with what he had. I don't see this as going to be an issue at all.
Any other questions?
Now, obviously, it's a big benefit to the police department to be able to
Right.
have the officers going closely to
Right.
training.
And it's not just our police department. John said he would be opening it up to those in St. Croix County as well. So I think all the surrounding communities will benefit from this range being here. And as I said, I have not found one con to this as of yet.
Thank you, Marty.
Just one other thing, one reason I went over there to look at that facility was because I was concerned about this going in the business district. I was wondering, where the other ones are located, if it's more industrial or not. And the Circle Pines location is, it's kind of on the side of industrial, but it's adjacent to a commercial. And if you look at this facility that you're looking at, right behind it is a warehouse. So it's probably quite appropriate in its zoning as the Circle Pines location. I don't know about the Robbinsdale.
The Robbinsdale location actually is a better profile, because the Robbinsdale location is actually in a strip mall right in the middle of downtown Robbinsdale. I've got a restaurant on one side, a doctor's office, North Memorial Clinics, coffee shop, dollar store, all of those things in the same facility with me. Chiropractic, dentist, health and wellness, a massage therapist, and those type of things are actually in the facility of my Robbinsdale store, in the same common 7,700 square foot mall.
John, can you explain what types of inspections are required?
I get
Such as the
inspected by
OSHA or
everybody
OSHA?
imaginable. ATF inspects me annually at both of my facilities because of the volume of firearms that we deal with. Used guns is usually what triggers that inspection process. But from the city standpoint, I'm a pretty substantial dealer, other than say a big box store like a Gander Mountain or a Fleet Farm or something of that nature. Basically, the ATF shows up once a year unannounced. They bring 5 to 7 inspectors in, and they go through my books, and they look at every single firearm that I've sold for that in the period of the 12 months from the day that they got there to 12 months back. They look at every 4473, which I transfer the firearms out on. They look at every firearm that I have in my store at that time to make sure it's in my log, and then they cross-check my log and go back into the store to find out if there are any differences. Over the course of my 10 years, last year I received a letter for the first time, and that letter was because Wackenhut Nuclear Power Facility, now owned by Xcel Energy, we sold them guns under a law enforcement letter, and there was an argument whether or not that federally funded agency was a law enforcement agency or a private agency. So they said, don't do that again, and we said, okay, and that was kind of it. So we've changed the way we do that process, but other than that, that's the only reprimand that I've ever received. I have 4 federal firearms licenses, 2 at each location, and we get inspected annually with that. We get inspected by OSHA. Because of the nature of our business, we have some lead. We get inspected about every 5 years from them. I just went through a complete inspection at both facilities this year. I expect to see them again in 5 years like clockwork. We have local and federal and state law enforcement people in our facility just about every day. There isn't a law enforcement agency probably in Minnesota that hasn't been in my store, bought something from my store, or used our facilities. We do an extensive amount of work with the U.S. Border Patrol. We deal with the Minnesota State Patrol and Northwest Division. We deal with every imaginable, the nuclear power plants. We do their training. They do their security officer training with us. Every armored car vehicle, every armed security group, and like I said, every law enforcement agency. So there's not a day where you can come into my facility and there's not someone from a state, federal, or local law enforcement agency somewhere in our facility. So from an inspection standpoint, we're inspected every day.
Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
Well, what's the process, Denny, that we
Well,
need to go through here?
Well, the process will be is that we'll need, the city attorney and I will need to draft a amendment to the zoning code, if that's your prerogative. That draft amendment would then go to public hearing, because it is a zoning, change in the zoning code, and by state law, it's required to have a Class 2 notice. The public hearing be held by the Common Council upon consideration of the ordinance adopted. That would make, potentially make indoor gun ranges your permitted use, a certificate of compliance, or a conditional use permit within our zoning code. Once that's adopted, and if then Mr. Monson could apply and go through whatever process is required to have a facility in Hudson.
Well,
But this review tonight is not for the specific facility, it's only to amend the ordinance.
well, I'll move that we direct you and the city attorney to construct the wording necessary to amend the code through a certificate of compliance, as you've suggested, for the B2, I1, Industrial 1, and Industrial 2 zoning districts to allow this type of a facility, indoor gun range.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So this so it does have to go through the public hearing in that whole entire process? Okay.
Absolutely.
For changing zoning?
Yes, just wanted to double verify.
Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry. Anything else? All those in favor?
I
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. 4-1.
Just clarification, that question, if it's approved for a certificate of compliance, the certificate of compliance would not require a public hearing. for the approval of the facility, but to change the ordinance to go to that point, that would require a public hearing, just a matter of clarification.
Is that what you were asking?
I was. Can you repeat that?
If zoning code is modified
Yes.
to allow as a indoor shooting range in those 3 districts through a certificate of compliance. Certificate of compliance does not require a public hearing.
Okay.
Requires the plans for the facility to come before the plan commission for approval, then to the common council for approval before a building permit could be issued.
So the only public hearing is on the zoning.
Correct.
All right, is there any other business and, for future purposes, anything? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned, thank you.